You know those moments that change everything. For me, it was an ordinary Tuesday evening. 5 years with Jessica, 2 wonderful years raising our son Mason, and a comfortable home in Chicago. We had just put Mason to bed after reading his favorite dinosaur story 3 times. Jessica and I were enjoying a rare, quiet dinner together when she looked up from her plate and casually asked Billy, "What if you are not the father of our son?" My fork clattered against the plate. My heart stopped, and for a moment I forgot how to breathe. Was she joking? The smile, playing at the corner of her lips, suggested maybe, but something in her eyes made me wonder. Before I tell you what happened next and how I responded to that shocking question, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button if you believe some jokes. Cross the line. And subscribe if you want to see how I handled what came next and the surprising truth I discovered. To understand why Jessica's question hit me so hard, you need to know about the life we had built together. I am a civil engineer specializing in bridge design, working for one of the top firms in Chicago. I have always been the analytical type, finding beauty in the precision of mathematics and the elegant solutions to complex structural problems. My colleagues often joke that I approach life like I approach my blueprints, methodically, thoughtfully, with attention to detail. I met Jessica 5 years ago at a sustainable architecture conference downtown. I was presenting a paper on eco-friendly materials in modern bridge construction, and she was there representing her interior design firm. Jessica stood out immediately with her vibrant red hair, infectious laugh, and the insightful questions she asked after my presentation. She approached me during the networking reception, business card in hand, suggesting a potential collaboration between our fields. That business card led to coffee, which led to dinner, which eventually led to the most meaningful relationship of my life. Jessica was everything. I was not spontaneous, creative, and emotionally expressive. Where I planned weeks in advance, she thrived on last-minute inspiration. Her design studio had quickly gained recognition for innovative residential spaces that balanced aesthetic appeal with practical functionality. I admired her talent and passion, the way she could walk into a room and immediately envision its potential. Our relationship progressed quickly. Within a year, we had moved in together, combining my minimalist furniture with her colorful art pieces in a downtown apartment with views of Lake Michigan. We complemented each other well, her creativity balancing my practicality. We had discussed marriage occasionally, but agreed we were happy with our arrangement for the time being. The pregnancy was unexpected. We had been together just over 2 years when Jessica missed her period. The positive test surprised us both, but after the initial shock wore off, excitement took its place. I still remember Jessica sitting cross-legged on our bathroom floor, looking up at me with tears in her eyes, saying, "I think we are going to be parents, Billy." Despite not planning for a child at that point, we both embraced the new direction our lives were taking. The pregnancy brought out a protective side of me I had never known existed. I attended every doctor appointment, downloaded pregnancy tracking apps, and converted our home office into a nursery with pale yellow walls that Jessica insisted would stimulate our baby's cognitive development. When Jessica developed severe morning sickness in her second trimester, I adjusted my work schedule to be home in the mornings, holding her hair back and bringing her crackers and ginger ale before heading to the office. Mason arrived after 22 hours of labor. I was there through it all, holding Jessica's hand as she pushed, cutting the umbilical cord when the doctor offered, and crying uncontrollably when they placed our son on Jessica's chest. He was perfect, 7 pounds, 4 ounces, with a tuft of dark brown hair like mine and Jessica's button nose. The nurse commented on how alert he was, his blue eyes wide open, taking in the new world around him. Becoming a father changed me profoundly. I negotiated a flexible work arrangement that allowed me to be home by 5:30 each evening. Our morning routine became my favorite part of the day. Mason in his high chair, me preparing breakfast while singing off key renditions of classic rock songs that made him giggle uncontrollably. Jessica would join us after her shower, hair still damp, kissing the top of Mason's head, before pouring herself coffee in the oversized mug he had painted for her at a Mommy and Me art class. As Mason grew from infant to toddler, his personality emerged more clearly. His stubborn streak and analytical approach to his toys reminded me of myself, while his creative imagination and easy laughter were pure Jessica. By his second birthday, Mason was a chatterbox with an impressive vocabulary, a love for building blocks, and an uncanny ability to take apart his toys and sometimes successfully reassemble them. My parents often commented on how much he looked like me at that age, especially his expressive blue eyes and the way his forehead creased when he concentrated. Jessica was a wonderful mother, though the transition had not been easy for her. She struggled with the identity shift, sometimes feeling her career was taking a back seat to motherhood. She had returned to work when Mason was 6 months old, but often expressed guilt about missing milestones during the day. I tried to support her as best I could, taking on more childcare responsibilities and encouraging her to maintain her professional ambitions. We were not perfect, but we were a team united in our love for each other and for the amazing little person we were raising. I never questioned my role as Mason's father or my place in our family unit. Not once had the thought crossed my mind that Mason might not be mine, which is why Jessica's question over dinner that Tuesday night was so jarring, so completely out of the blue, that it felt like being doused with ice water on a pauster winter morning. Looking back, I should have noticed the subtle changes in Jessica's behavior over the 3 months leading up to that night. It started with small things, phone calls she would take in another room, a new password on her phone that she never mentioned, changing late-night text exchanges with colleagues about urgent projects. At the time, I rationalized each of these changes, attributing them to work stress or normal relationship evolution. Jessica had recently taken on a large commercial project, designing a boutique hotel lobby which she said was stretching her creatively and demanding more of her time. There were moments when her mood seemed to shift suddenly, especially around me. She would become irritable over small matters like my leaving coffee mugs in the sink or folding towels the wrong way. When I tried to discuss these changes, Jessica would dismiss my concerns, blaming work pressure or lack of sleep due to Mason occasionally waking during the night. That Tuesday had been ordinary in every way. I had come home from work to find Jessica and Mason building a fort out of couch cushions in the living room. We had dinner as a family. Jessica had given Mason his bath, while I cleaned the kitchen, and together we had put him to bed with his favorite stories and stuffed triceratops. Once Mason was asleep, Jessica had suggested we open a bottle of wine and have a proper dinner, just the two of us. I had grilled steaks while Jessica prepared a salad, and we sat at our small dining table, candles lit, soft music playing in the background. It felt like old times before the baby and before the recent tension. I was telling her about a new bridge project my firm had won, explaining the innovative suspension design we were proposing, when I noticed her attention drifting. She was pushing a cherry tomato around her plate, seemingly lost in thought. Then came the question that would haunt me for weeks. "Billy, have you ever wondered something? What if you are not the father of our son?" The room seemed to tilt sideways. My fork slipped from my fingers and clattered against the plate. The steak I had been chewing turned to ash in my mouth. I looked at Jessica, searching her face for signs that this was some kind of bizarre joke, but found only an unreadable expression. There was a slight smile, yes, but her eyes held something else, something that made my stomach tighten into knots. After what felt like hours but was probably only seconds, I managed to swallow and ask, "What did you just say?" Jessica's face broke into a wider smile, and she laughed lightly. "Oh my God, you should see your face right now. I am just kidding, Billy. Lighten up." But I could not lighten up. My hands were trembling. "Why would you joke about something like that? That is not funny, Jessica. Not even remotely." Her smile faltered. "It was just a silly joke. Why are you being so sensitive? A joke about me not being Mason's father. What exactly is funny about that?" My voice was rising despite my efforts to control it. Jessica rolled her eyes, her expression shifting to annoyance. It was a stupid comment. I did not mean anything by it. Can we just forget it and finish dinner? But I could not forget it. The question hung between us like a storm cloud darkening everything. We finished our meal in uncomfortable silence, and when Jessica reached for my hand across the table, I found myself pulling away a reaction that seemed to surprise us both. Later that night, lying awake while Jessica slept beside me, the question replayed in my mind on an endless loop. Why would she say such a thing? Was it really just a thoughtless joke? Or was there something more sinister behind it? A truth she was testing the waters to reveal. And why now, after 2 years of raising Mason together without any hint of such a devastating possibility? Sleep eluded me as these questions churned in my mind. I found myself studying Jessica's sleeping face in the dim light from the street lamp outside our window. This woman I had loved and trusted for 5 years suddenly seemed like a stranger. In that moment, a seed of doubt was planted that would grow into something I never could have anticipated. The next morning, I went through the motions of our normal routine on autopilot. I made breakfast for Mason, packed Jessica's lunch as usual, and kissed them both goodbye before heading to work. But inside, I was anything but normal. The question had burrowed into my mind, like a parasite feeding on every insecurity and doubt I had ever felt. At work, I could not focus. Bridge calculations that usually came easily to me now seemed like indecipherable hieroglyphics. My colleague Thomas noticed my distraction during our team meeting and asked if everything was all right. I mumbled something about a poor night's sleep and tried to pull myself together. During lunch alone in my office with a sandwich I had no appetite for, I found myself opening my phone's photo gallery and scrolling through pictures of Mason. I studied his features with an intensity I never had before. His blue eyes so similar to my own. His dark brown hair the same shade as mine. The way his forehead creased when he concentrated a mannerism my mother had often pointed out as distinctly mine. But were these similarities real? Or had I simply seen what I wanted to see? How many blue-eyed, brown-haired children existed in the world? Could these traits have come from another man who shared similar features that evening instead of going straight home? I drove to a pharmacy and with burning shame purchased an at-home DNA paternity test. The clerk's face remained neutral as she rang up my purchase, but I imagined judgment in her eyes. I felt like I was betraying Jessica and Mason, both giving weight to a joke that should have been dismissed and forgotten. Over the next week, I became hyper-aware of everything Jessica did. I noted the times she checked her phone and how she angled the screen away from me. I paid attention to which colleagues she mentioned and how often. I even began checking our credit card statements, looking for unexplained charges or patterns in her spending. One morning, while Jessica was in the shower and Mason was still asleep, I did something I had never done before. I looked through her phone. The passcode had recently changed, but I had seen her enter it a few days earlier and memorized it. With shaking hands, I opened her message app and began scrolling. Most conversations were innocuous work-related exchanges, with her design team chats with her sister about an upcoming family visit, messages to our mutual friends about a planned barbecue. Then I found a thread with someone named Daniel. The messages were not explicitly romantic, but there was a familiarity and warmth to them that made my stomach churn. They discussed meeting for coffee to catch up and made references to a project they were both excited about. Jessica had never mentioned a Daniel to me, at least, not in any significant way. Later that same day, I collected samples for the DNA test, a hair from Mason's brush and a swab inside his cheek while pretending to check if he was getting new teeth. The guilt was overwhelming, but the need to know the truth had become an obsession I could not shake. As I waited for the test results, which the kit said would take 3 to 5 business days, more suspicious incidents accumulated. I overheard Jessica on the phone in our bathroom, speaking in hushed tones, saying, "He does not know anything. Do not worry." When she emerged and saw me in the hallway, she quickly explained she was talking to her sister about a surprise birthday party they were planning for their mother. Then I found a hotel receipt in her purse while looking for car keys. The date on it was from 2 weeks earlier, A Tuesday when Jessica had told me she was working late on her hotel lobby project. When I casually mentioned finding it, she explained that her office had been undergoing renovations and her firm had rented hotel rooms for employees to use as temporary workspaces. It sounded plausible, but doubt had become my constant companion. My internal conflict was agonizing. I loved Jessica deeply, had built a life with her, and treasured every moment with Mason. The thought of our family being built on a lie was almost too painful to contemplate. Yet I could not unsee the patterns of secretive behavior, could not unhear that devastating question asked so casually over dinner. The email notification for the test results arrived while I was at work, 4 days after I had mailed in the samples. I stared at my inbox for 20 minutes, before finding the courage to open it. With a racing heart and trembling fingers, I clicked on the message that would either put my fears to rest or confirm my worst nightmare. The paternity test results were unequivocal. Probability of paternity 99.99999%. I was without any doubt Mason's biological father. The immediate flood of relief was quickly followed by shame and then anger. I was ashamed that I had doubted that I had gone behind Jessica's back to conduct this test. But I was also angry, furious, that Jessica's careless joke had driven me to such lengths, had injected poison into what should have been an unquestionable bond with my son. That evening, after Mason was asleep, I confronted Jessica. I placed the paternity test results on the kitchen table between us and watched as confusion, then shock, then outrage crossed her face. "What is this?" she demanded, though it was clear she understood exactly what she was looking at. "I needed to know," I said simply. "You tested our son's DNA without telling me. How could you do something like that? What were you thinking, Billy?" Her voice rose with each question, her face flushing with anger. "I was thinking about what you said, about me not being Mason's father. That joke that was not funny." Jessica stood up, pushing her chair back with such force it nearly toppled over. "It was a stupid comment. I never thought you would take it seriously, let alone go behind my back like this. It is not just what you said." I continued, keeping my voice level, despite the storm of emotions inside me. "It is everything else, too. The secret phone calls, the password changes, the late nights, the hotel receipt. Daniel." Her face paled at the mention of the name. "You have been spying on me. I have been trying to understand why my girlfriend would suddenly joke about our son not being mine. And in doing so, I found a lot of things that do not add up." What followed was hours of accusations, tears, and eventually confessions. Jessica admitted that Daniel was an ex-boyfriend she had reconnected with recently when he reached out about a potential design collaboration. They had met several times for coffee and had been working together on a proposal for an upscale residential development. "Nothing physical happened between us," she insisted. "We are just colleagues now working on a project that could be huge for my career." "Then why the secrecy? Why not tell me about him from the beginning?" Jessica sank back into her chair, suddenly looking exhausted. "Because I knew how it would look. And because there is history there. Daniel and I were serious before I met you. He proposed once, actually. This was new information, a significant part of her past she had never shared with me. And the hotel was exactly what I told you. My office was being renovated, and we used hotel rooms as temporary workspaces. Daniel was there because he is part of the project team. Other colleagues were there too. And the phone calls, the passwords. The text about me not knowing something." She looked away. "I was talking to my sister about Daniel, about how guilty I felt for even having coffee with him without telling you. The password was changed because Mason had gotten hold of my phone and accidentally locked me out by entering too many wrong patterns. And yes, I have been secretive, but not because I am cheating. Because I have been confused. Confused about what Jessica's eyes filled with tears. About us. About whether you still see me as more than just Mason's mother. You have been so distant lately, so wrapped up in your work and your time with Mason. Sometimes I feel invisible, Billy." That stupid joke. It was my way of trying to get a reaction from you, to see if you still cared enough to fight for us. By implying our son might not be mine. That was your solution. The absurdity of it struck me anew. It was wrong and thoughtless. I knew immediately from your reaction that I had crossed a line. I am so sorry, Billy. I never meant to cause all this. I wanted to believe her. Parts of her explanation made sense, filled in gaps in ways that were plausible. But trust once damaged is not easily repaired. And the fact remained that she had deliberately played on my deepest insecurities as some sort of relationship test. I need time to process all this, I finally said. I think I should stay somewhere else for a while. The pain in Jessica's eyes was palpable, but she nodded slowly. I understand, but please do not stay away from Mason. He needs his father. I would never abandon my son. I assured her the DNA results on the table between us. A stark reminder of the unnecessary doubt that had been created. That night I packed a bag and went to stay with my friend Eric, who lived a few blocks away. As I lay on his uncomfortable sofa bed staring at the ceiling, I tried to make sense of everything. The paternity test had answered one question definitively, but many others remained. The next 6 weeks were the most challenging of my life. I established a routine of visiting Mason daily, usually taking him to the park after work while Jessica prepared dinner. We would eat as a family, and I would help put Mason to bed before returning to Eric's apartment. These visits were simultaneously joyful and painful, a reminder of what I was missing, but also what I stood to lose permanently if I made the wrong decision. Jessica and I began couples therapy at my insistence. Our first session was tense, with both of us defensive and hurt. Dr. Lowenthal, a calm, silver-haired woman with decades of experience, guided us through a structured conversation about expectations, boundaries, and communication styles. It was illuminating and uncomfortable in equal measure. Through these sessions, patterns emerged that helped explain how we had arrived at this crisis point. Jessica revealed deep-seated abandonment issues stemming from her father leaving when she was young. Her joke about Mason's paternity, cruel as it was, came from a place of insecurity and fear that I was emotionally checking out of our relationship. For my part, I recognized my tendency to avoid conflict, to retreat into work or fatherhood when relationship tensions arose. I had indeed been less attentive to Jessica as a partner in recent months, focusing instead on career advancement and my bond with Mason. The distance had been growing between us long before her ill-conceived comment brought everything to a head. I also made an effort to verify Jessica's explanations about Daniel and the hotel. Through mutual friends and some discreet inquiries, I confirmed that her design firm had indeed been renovating their offices during the period in question and had arranged for employees to use hotel conference rooms as temporary workspace. I also learned that Daniel was a well-respected interior designer who had recently moved back to Chicago after several years in New York, and that the residential development project Jessica mentioned was legitimate and potentially lucrative. These confirmations eased some of my suspicions, but the fundamental breach of trust remained. In our fourth therapy session, I finally articulated the core issue: I can forgive a thoughtless joke or even temporary confusion about our relationship. What is harder to move past is the manipulation, the idea that testing my reaction was an acceptable way to address your insecurities. Jessica nodded, tears streaming down her face. I know. It was cruel and immature. I have been thinking about why I did it, and I think part of me wanted to hurt you because I was feeling hurt and invisible. That is not an excuse, just an explanation. I will regret it for the rest of my life. Billy, Dr. Lowenthal guided us toward establishing new patterns of communication, scheduled check-ins about the relationship, honesty, about friendships with people of the opposite sex, and most importantly, direct expression of needs rather than tests or games. After 6 weeks of therapy, separate living arrangements, and countless hours of reflection, I made my decision. I asked Jessica to meet me at our favorite park bench, where years ago we had first discussed moving in together. Mason was with my parents for the afternoon, giving us space to talk. "I want to come home," I told her simply. "I miss our family. I miss you." Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "Even after everything, you can forgive me. Forgiveness is a process, not an event," I said, echoing Dr. Lowenthal's words. "I am choosing to continue that process with you, because what we built together is worth fighting for. But things need to change for both of us." We established clear agreements for our fresh start: complete transparency about friendships and work relationships, weekly date nights to nurture our connection as partners, not just co-parents, and continued therapy to strengthen our hands. Communication skills. Jessica agreed to maintain appropriate boundaries with Daniel, including meeting only in professional settings, and always being transparent about their interactions. My return home was emotional for everyone. Mason ran to me, arms outstretched, shouting "Daddy home forever" with such joy that it brought tears to my eyes. That night, after putting him to bed, Jessica and I sat on our couch, fingers intertwined, and talked more honestly than we had in months about our fears, dreams, and hopes for our family. The healing was not instant or easy. There were moments of doubt, arguments where old wounds reopened, nights when I found myself staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had made the right choice. But there were also new moments of connection, deeper understanding, and a growing appreciation for the work required to maintain a healthy relationship. 6 months later, our family is stronger for having weathered this storm. The paternity test that once symbolized broken trust now serves as a reminder of how close we came to losing everything over miscommunication and insecurity. Mason continues to thrive, blissfully unaware of the crisis his parents navigated. Jessica and I have developed new habits of checking in with each other, making space for vulnerable conversations, and prioritizing our relationship alongside our parenting and careers. Sometimes a thoughtless joke can shatter what took years to build, but if the foundation is strong enough, even the deepest cracks can be repaired. Have you ever had to rebuild trust in your relationship? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories about family challenges and growth. And if you know someone who might benefit from hearing this journey, share this video with them. Thank you for listening, and remember that even our most painful experiences can ultimately lead to greater wisdom and stronger connections.